Well, good day everybody, and welcome back to Survival NS and my second episode of my van build here. And if you were with me yesterday, then you would have seen me install the vibration dampening material on the side walls and the back door. And today what we're going to do is we are going to install the floor insulation, and it's going to be done in two parts. Now the first part is going to be a heat shield insulation with a reflective material which is designed to reflect the heat back into the van during the cold winter months. And then the second part is going to be the foam board insulation, which will be put on top of the heat shield insulation and bonded with a LePage super glue type spray. I'm not going to bore you all with all the tedious measuring and cutting that takes place. We're going to get straight into the meat and potatoes of the installation. Now, anyone who owns a van like this, excuse me, will tell you nothing inside the van when you're installing anything is straightforward. Everything is not straight or 90-degree angle. There's all kinds of angles and twists and turns that you have to measure and then cut, and everything has to be measured at least twice, if not more, before you start cutting. And even then, after you start cutting, you may have to go back and cut a bit more to make sure it all fits in place. So with all that said, let's get started and install the heat shield insulation. We are going to put the noise dampening insulation in, which is this material right here. And as you can see, it's got a reflective heat shield on it to reflect the heat back up from the floor. And it comes in packaged like this material right there. I bought two packages. It covers 21 square feet, about 21 and a half square feet actually for each package. It's not enough to do the whole floor. However, I'm going to end up ordering two more packages to do the back end. So for this job, you're going to need a pair of scissors or a pair of box cutters. You're going to need some aluminum foil tape, a knife. You're going to need a Sharpie or some other writing utensil so that you trace out the footprint to get around some of the tow hooks and the wheel well. You're going to need that plastic roller again, and a pair of good leather gloves so you don't cut yourself. So as you can see behind me here now, I've got the first heat shield on here, and it wasn't that hard actually to put in. It's very simple. You just peel and stick, and then you use the aluminum foil tape to batten down the edges so that they don't turn over and start ripping up. And now what I've got to do is I've got to take this one here, and I have to trace the footprint of my floor mat that came with the van so that I can cut the holes out that will go around the tie downs here along the edge. So that's my next step. Now some folks out there would probably question why I would put down a heat shield and foam board insulation as well, and then the flooring on top of that. Well, the reason why I'm putting in a heat shield as well is because we get some pretty harsh winters out here in eastern Canada, and I want to stay nice, comfortable, and warm when I'm out camping in my van. So if you're down south anywhere like Florida or Arizona or California, you may not need a heat shield, that's for sure. But in harsher cold weather and climates, I think it's pretty important that you also have a heat shield. Okay, that's it for me for today. It's been a long day, about 5 hours working on the heat insulation here. So this stuff I can feel the difference already just sitting on here. I don't feel any cold coming up through the metal as is. This stuff really works. So if you're in a cold weather climate, you're going to want to put some of this heat insulation in your van. All right, so as you can see, the foam board insulation has been cut to fit. All the grooves have been cut out to accommodate for the tie downs. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove the foam boards, spray the heat shield insulation underneath with the LePage heavy duty spray glue, and then place the boards back in the way they are now, and then place some weight on top to make sure it secures to the heat insulation. Now, this is the ultra robust, heavy duty. You can also get the standard spray glue that they have out there, but I got this one over at Home Depot, and this is specifically designed for heavy duty use, something that you really want to have stick and stay for a long time. It is a little bit pricey. I mean, I think I paid $39-40 for this spray can. And the other all-purpose spray glue you could purchase for about $17. So when you're doing this, don't skimp. Get the right stuff. All right, so as you can see, the foam insulation boards have now been glued to the heat insulation pad on the bottom, and I've placed my flooring, which is pretty heavy actually, on top of that to hold it in place and to let it bond. And I'm going to leave that overnight, so it's going to be on here for about 24 hours to ensure that there is a good bonding that takes place here. And the other thing I did is I used aluminum foil tape to tape the pieces of foam board together on the surface here. Just an added little security thing there, just to keep them together, to make sure they don't move around. It's always nice to do that. But the main point is the foam insulation board is now put in place. It's glued. We're going to leave it overnight for 24 hours and let it bond. Tomorrow we're going to work on my flooring, which I will talk about tomorrow. I'm not going to get into that today. I'm using it today because they are heavy, and placing them on top of the foam board insulation is going to hold it there. Well, there you go, folks. Our floor insulation process has been completed, and our next step is going to be installing our flooring. But before we get there, I just want to say a couple of things about the floor insulation. First of all, when you're going to be installing your floor insulation, be prepared to be on your hands and knees for long hours. And your back's going to hurt, your knees are going to hurt, so please wear protective equipment. Have some gloves when you're doing your cutting, and have some knee pads because you're going to be on your hands and knees. Well, that concludes part 2 of my van build. In part 3, you're going to see the installation of my flooring. Now, my flooring is not going to be your conventional type of flooring being installed that you normally see on those other YouTube channels with their van builds, where they install a plywood subfloor and then usually a tongue and groove wood floor on top of that. Nope, mine's not going to be that conventional. And to find out what type of floor I'll be installing, tune in to part 3 coming up shortly. That concludes this episode. Take care. We'll see you on the next one.